Very cool. We're live. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode from the Lone Assassin channel. Really excited to do this one. We've got Jose from BDA Solutions again. And in this episode, we're talking about, we're going to do another segment on real estate. And we're talking, because we got really good feedback on the last one. And on within this training, we're going to be talking about how to analyze a real estate deal for maximum profits. And within that, we're going to break down a lot of really important stuff. We're going to talk about overall market analysis, finding those, because obviously every market is a little bit different depending on where you're at, and then how to do a proper deal analysis as well. What factors to look at, what numbers to look at to determine whether or not this is a good deal. So really, by the end of this training, you're going to know whether a market is good or bad, what kind of deal is good or bad, the numbers to run. We're also going to talk about some specific exit strategies for this type of analysis as well. So we'll talk about the difference between fix and flips and rentals, because those are obviously two different types of strategies within real estate. So we're going to be looking at different numbers, doing a different type of analysis. So kind of taking a top-down approach here, looking at the market, overall market first in your area, and then how to identify those really good deals. And we'll do a comparison to good deals versus bad deals. So make sure you stick to the end. And as always, if you find this helpful, just do me a favor, hit that like button. Really appreciate it. Leave a comment down below with any questions or any specific requests for videos as well. And we'll take a look at that, and then we'll go from there. So with that said, Jose, really appreciate you being here as always, man. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, Matt, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity for us to sit down and kind of, not only nerd out, between the two of us, but also help give people as much information up front as possible to not only make the best decisions for themselves and their business, but also feel confident in knowing that when they get into the nitty gritty conversations with a broker, a lender, a business partner, seller, buyer, whatever, you have the knowledge and the confidence to communicate your position, to substantiate it, and make a killing in the process. So
Yeah.
I'd appreciate the opportunity, and any education that we can give at any point throughout the entire process, I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, man. I always look forward to doing these because I learn something new every time we do this as well. I mean, you're what I love about working with you is you're a true expert in your field. You really know what you're doing, and what that does is allows you to truly help people take their business to the next level. Whether small business owner, real estate investor, whatever it is, but you have really good systems and processes in place, and I love that. And I love sharing that with people too, because these are the types of things that can make all the difference in the world. If we're talking about doing a real estate deal, like what we're going to be talking about today, what you're going to be sharing is the foundation, in my opinion, for doing really good in real estate. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but if you don't have the foundation, you don't know what numbers to look at, you don't know how to identify a deal properly, you could get yourself in a lot of trouble. You could actually end up doing the opposite, right?
Yeah, no, that, and you can do a ton of damage. First and foremost, I really appreciate the compliments there. That means a lot coming, from someone like you. But we're helping people make better decisions. And even one of the things that I like to kind of communicate through, whether you're communicating with me or somebody else on my team, is that whether or not we get the deal, it's we'd like to get the deal, we'd like to earn the deal, but more than anything else, we want to give information out to people so that the decisions that they do make with or without us are in their best interest.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that, education first. Once you have all the education, and then at that point you can make a decision. But without a
Right.
decision to base or the information to base a decision off
Right.
of, yeah, you could be making some huge mistakes that can cost you for years down the road.
Yeah, education is key here, especially too. I mean, you're dealing with debt. Something you're getting funding and stuff like that. A lot of the times that you're personally responsible for. Not all the time, But these things can have long-term impact. So educating yourself, really, really important. And also, guys, I'll go ahead and throw up Jose's website here on the screen. So if you guys want to connect with Jose, do a free strategy session. If you got a deal or a market or deal that you're looking at, you want to break that down. I'll have the link in the description as well. Make sure you take advantage of that. So with that said, Jose, where do you think we should start with this? Do you want to start with analyzing, again, just taking that top-down approach? Do you want to talk about analyzing a market first versus like individual deals, or where do you want to start with that?
Yeah, so let's start with overall market analysis first, and even kind of taking it a step back before that, knowing what type of exit strategy you are entertaining is important to know before you even start doing the market analysis.
Okay, so let's
The
do that.
market analysis, the market analysis
Exit strategies.
can help to either solidify your business plan, or it can actually help you pivot it and say, this probably isn't the best fit for us. And we'll kind of go over the factors of what it'll take to make that decision.
Okay.
But real estate deals do come in various forms. Each one of them has their own characteristics and considerations. So for you to understand the different types of real estate exit strategies from an investor's perspective is what you'll need to make the best decisions.
Right.
So within the
And it
real
also
estate,
determines how you analyze the deal too, right?
exactly. Within the world of real estate investing, there are three kind of general exit strategies that you can have. First is wholesaling. Back in the day, wholesaling used to be kind of the first step that you would take into getting into the investor world.
Right.
And the reason for that was because back then you can get into wholesaling with very little capital. And what that entails is literally putting the property under contract. By doing that, you have the exclusive right to purchase that property by a particular deadline.
Right.
And so what you would do is then sell that contract to an investor that was financially capable of taking on the project in its entirety.
Right.
So you would make a wholesale fee off of that. Things have changed. The real estate market has changed. Many states now do require that you are a licensed broker.
Yeah, you have a license.
So taking a look at that exit strategy, if you're looking at old YouTube videos and you're like, holy crap, that might be a really good way for me to get going, pump the brakes a little bit, double check what your state's requirements are,
right,
and then move forward from there. But if you're licensed, this would be an awesome opportunity for you to, to get into the investor world. Also, the second one, and I think it's probably the most common form of talked about real estate investment strategies, is fix and flip. So you buy a distressed property, you invest into it, renovate it, increase its value, and flip it for a profit. The third one are rental properties. Those are, I guess, less sexy, for lack of a better term, but the impact that they have on your portfolio, on your bottom line, on your overall net worth as an individual or as a company is phenomenal. So knowing and keeping your eyes open on rental properties is super, super important.
Yeah, cash flow is king, man. It's nice to
Absolutely
have those checks coming in every month. But with like the way I run my business, having multiple income streams, multiple strategies that you implement, for me, just it brings a lot of security to the business as well. So having the monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue, whatever, that you get from the rentals, and then having those big paydays with the fix and flips, and then maybe getting quick cash, a few $1,000 really quick using wholesaling. right? So really understanding all of these exit strategies over time, maybe not right away, but understanding the different exit strategies can open up a lot of potential income streams for your real estate business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you have an idea as to what your own strengths, weaknesses, and capabilities are,
Right.
you can really build that three-legged stool to operate at full efficiency, and you would literally have a income opportunity for any deal that comes across your desk.
Right.
But it takes time for you to build not only the financial wherewithal, but also the overall market analysis that it'll take for you to make those judgment calls
Sure.
on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. So yeah, let's segue into that market analysis then. How does that work for those three different exit strategies?
So yeah, it's important to know who is a member of your team. As a real estate investor, it's super important that you have a trustworthy and reliable realtor to begin with. The realtor is going to be the key to be able to get you a lot of the reports that I'm going to be talking about,
Right.
that you are going to need to determine what your best exit strategy is going to be. So once you have someone on your team that you can trust, and you know that what they are going to be presenting to you is well thought out and prepared. You don't want somebody that's just going to click a couple of buttons and just regurgitate whatever numbers or properties come up on that report. You want them to go through the report before they give it over.
Right. You want to get something from them that you can't get yourself on the internet.
Exactly.
Right? So,
Exactly.
And that's customized to what you're looking for.
Correct. Exactly. So when there are properties that are bought and sold on a daily basis, what the realtors have access to the MLS. On the MLS, they can run reports that will let you know overall who purchased, what type of buyer acquired that property.
Mhm.
And you want two different types of reports. You want your owner occupied properties, and that area, generally speaking, should be where you buy or you start to market for off market deals, for fix and flip strategies, because that is where the residential market is concentrating. That's where you want a buyer at full market value.
Right. Makes
The
sense.
other aspect of it are non-owner occupied properties. You can use this list for two reasons. Number one, you can use it to build a buyer's list,
Yep.
just so that you have a list of active real estate investors that you can either wholesale a property to, or if you come across a potential rental property, you have investors that are actively in the market buying those types of properties.
Right.
Within the rental world, there is a straight buy rent, and you have that rent for a 30-year note. And there's also a strategy referred to as BRRRR, which is an acronym for buy, renovate, refinance, and then reinvest. Depending on what your scale model is for your business, I would encourage people to look into the BRRRR exit strategy, so that you not only limit the amount of capital gains taxes that you can potentially pay out by reinvesting those proceeds into your next property, but it'll also allow you to leverage current market status in order to acquire properties much quicker than you would if you were to just buy and rent and just take a look at that property on a 30-year basis.
I got you. That would be, you're talking about a 1035 exchange. That would be part of the BRRRR strategy, right?
It could be
avoiding the capital gains taxes. You take the profits, reinvest it.
Right. Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So just to kind of reiterate, I am not an accountant. I'm not a tax expert. These are just ideas that I'm throwing out there that I throw out to my clients to double check and make sure that they are fully aware of all of the vehicles at their disposal
Right.
to be able to grow, scale, and profit as much as possible. So
Gotcha.
if you can get those reports, the owner occupied report and the non-owner occupied reports, if they can somehow download those into a visual map of whatever county, city it is that you're looking at, you can very quickly begin to see what areas you should be marketing for the types of properties that you want to get into.
Right.
Again, owner occupied, that's where you want to fix and flip. Non-owner, heavily condensed, non-owner occupied, that's where you want to build your buyers list and then also possibly look into wholesaling properties in that condensed area.
Right. So first, finding your building up your team, getting a good realtor, maybe a couple of them, some type of broker, whatever that has access to these types of reports. You run those reports so where you really understand the type of exit strategy for the different parts of your particular market that would be most suited. Because you might find a good deal in one of these areas. Let's say the owner occupied, but if you have the wrong, if you're using the wrong exit strategy, not saying you can't get the deal done, but you're creating more work for yourself than is necessary, and it might not get done because it's
Right.
not the right area for it.
Exactly. And not only that, but it again, you have to kind of keep in mind as to who your end buyer is going to be. So if you're buying a property in a very heavily condensed investor area and you're putting your endeavors into the rehab of your subject property and you're putting all of these upgrades, you're expecting to get top dollar for that property. Investors don't buy in
Right.
that emotional state. They look at numbers, they look at rent rolls.
Right.
So if you're trying to market a particular property to the wrong end buyer, you're going to take them at the best case scenario, you're going to take a pay cut when it comes to actually getting rid of that property. Worst
Right.
case scenario, you might have to become a landlord when you weren't ready for that. So,
Right. And the
kind of
title of
keep
this
that in
video,
mind.
part of the title of this video is for maximum profits. We don't want to take pay cuts, guys. So make sure you're doing this properly. Get those reports. Let me ask you this, Jose. So when someone gets those reports, so they understand the different parts of their particular market, like what types of exit strategies are appropriate. Are there any reports that you should typically get from a realtor as well, as far as the overall market in your area itself? Like, for example, job growth. Where's the most job growth in the city, or something like that? Or do you ever get any reports like that to analyze different types of markets, maybe in different states as well?
To be quite honest with you, I don't normally get those from the realtors. I normally get them from business sources. I
Yeah.
use the Wall Street Journal a lot. I use Business Week a lot.
Okay.
And really, if you are in that local market, pay attention to where the developers are.
Right.
If there are new condos going up, if there are new big box stores going up, take a look at that particular area and using these realtor generated reports, find out what market is there. And if you
Right.
can service that market, that is again a reinforcement of holy cow, like taking this report and maximizing the overall performance of your service or product is going to make or break. That's what's going to separate you from your competition
Right.
when it comes to selling or disposing some of these properties.
So that kind of analysis, that part of the analysis is really done with your own sources, like
Correct. Yeah.
that's
And
stuff that you could just get online, or just you're paying attention driving around. Like here in Jacksonville, Florida, though, like there's new development signs just everywhere. Like this place is just exploding right now, especially like on the north side. They have tons of apartment complexes coming up and all that stuff. So paying attention to things like that in your local market could be can be huge and kind of point you in the direction of where the next opportunity can be.
Right. And that's if you have access to the local market. Using this technique, it will kind of give you some information if you're possibly looking into getting into a market that you cannot drive to. So if I was looking at investing down in Florida, for example, I can have a very good idea as to what area, what neighborhoods I'm going to be investing for what exit strategy, regardless of me being there or not.
Right.
So some of the virtual market analysis is what I like to call them, can help you really expand your capabilities outside of your local immediate area.
Right, gotcha. Okay, so then they have these different reports. They're doing some of their own research on job growth, development. So what's next as far as the analysis goes?
So then you start diving into the what's a good deal, what's a bad deal. Once you have an idea overall, what am I looking at? Who am I marketing to? Now you actually go out, get an individual deal, take a look at it, dissect it, and find out if it's going to make sense to you or not. From that perspective, the exit strategy obviously is going to be key. And then the second thing to take a look at is your actual profit margin. So, kind of going back to your exit strategy, the viability of that exit strategy is going to help be the first indicator as to whether or not it's a good deal or a bad deal. So, if you are flipping properties, again, kind of going back to the need of having a good team behind you, another market report that you're going to need is a BPO, or sometimes referred to as a CMA.
Okay.
Those give you the market value for the particular property that you are looking at. You have to be able to analyze and critique the report that is given to you from your realtor. So, some of the key indicators to look at there: your subject property, the one that you are looking to invest into, whatever comparable properties the realtor pulls into that report to give you the market value for your subject property, has to have the same bed and bath count. Okay. It has to be within a 1 mile radius of where the subject property is, give or take the same square footage. And on a map, if you're not familiar with the area, you have to take into account separating landmarks, for example, railroad tracks that may fall within that 1 mile radius, but there's really a world of difference between the market values on one side of the railroad tracks as compared to the others.
Mm.
So if the realtor is taking a look at a property that is across the railroad tracks for this example, that may be affecting the numbers that you are looking at in either plus or minus. It'll affect what your overall profit is going to be. So keep that in mind. Those BPOs, those CMAs, sometimes those are a dime a dozen. Many realtors don't put too much thought or effort when they generate those reports. So, again, be ready to analyze and critique. Don't be afraid to go back to the realtor and say, hey, you know what? I don't think this property fits. Because remember, their objective is to try to get your property to sell for the most amount of dollars.
Right.
And sometimes they will be not necessarily intentionally misleading you into believing that the market value is higher than it actually is. They could be doing it completely ignorant of what is around.
Right.
But you as an investor, you're ultimately, your name, your dollar is on the line. So you're ultimately responsible for making sure the accuracy of those reports.
Right, makes sense. It sounds like the key to getting that a good report like that, instead of just a broad generic one that can throw your numbers off, is to be very clear with the realtor what you're looking for with that report. Right. I don't want all sales just in the general area. I want it for that fits this specific criteria. Right. So like if you like, and with your example, you said a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, for example, don't put anything other than a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with similar square footage in that report. Is that
Right.
is that fair?
Yeah, that's exactly fair. Now, also, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different layers that could differentiate the analysis on it. But if you're buying, let's say, for example, a 2-1, and in your profit or in your rehab schedule, you're converting it into a 3-2. Well, you want a 2-1 CMA so that you know what the actual current market value of that property is going to be. But you want a 3-2 CMA so that you know what your after repair value is going to
Right.
be. They're going to be two different numbers.
Right.
So kind of keep that in mind, know what your exit strategy is, know what your rehab numbers are and what that actually entails, and work accordingly.
Okay. So then once you have that CMA, and so we've got that data, how do we use that to determine whether or not it's a good deal or not?
So once you have that, there's different layers. You kind of different numbers you need to think of it as a puzzle. You've got one piece of it here, you have another piece over here, which is the scope of work. Your scope of work, you have to have a very good grasp on what each phase of your construction is going to be. um know, again, your team, know your contractor. You need to have an agreement signed with them that does not allow for change orders. Okay,
Okay.
it's a common practice for a contractor to come in and get you a great looking bid, but on that bid he is including bare minimum just to get you, just to show a low number. But once he actually starts the work, he's going to be putting in all of these change orders, and that's going to affect your bottom line. So sign an upfront agreement with him. Do not allow for change orders. Get creative with that agreement. Okay, you're going to have to somehow provide incentives for that contractor to produce, because obviously you're asking him to perform his job at a smaller profit margin in exchange for volume,
Hmm.
because you are not going to be doing this once every blue moon, which is typically the type of client that he comes across. He comes across someone that needs a kitchen remodeled. He's probably never going to see that client again.
Right.
You are a different type of client. You're going to come in, you're going to give him job after job after job as you are acquiring properties. So provide that information to him. Maybe even go as far as giving him a revenue share if he's on time and performs within budget. There is normally a contingency line item within your scope of work that allows for unexpected costs to be absorbed. Well, if your contractor produces his work and does not cause any contingencies, hey, you know what, Mr. Contractor? Here's the bonus. It's the contingency line item. Thank you for doing a fabulous job. It doesn't necessarily affect your takeaway, your net profit, because that was already calculated in the
Right.
scope
It's
of
already
work.
calculated
So
in.
you're just rewarding him for a job well done. You guys are both incentivized to get this thing done as quickly and as effectively as possible. You're already shooting on all, on all cylinders. So a
Right.
good scope of work, good CMA, you connect those together, and that will allow you to, along with the financing component. So it's those three legs will allow you to fully analyze and find out whether or not it's a good deal. Just because it's profitable does not mean that it is a good deal.
Right.
Your profit margin, you should have a minimum profit margin, a standard for you to be able to take on the risk of a fix and flip. Okay,
Right.
so know how to calculate your net profit. It goes a lot deeper than just the Mayo formula that a lot of real estate investors use to quickly analyze the acquisition price for a property.
What is that? You said Mayo?
Mayo formula. So it's MAO, maximum allowable offer. Typically, real estate investors will take 75% of the calculated after repair value,
Hmm.
subtract their rehab costs from that, and that will give them their maximum allowable offer.
Okay.
Many investors operate just off of that formula, not taking into account how much the financing is going to cost you, what your
Hmm.
other holding costs are going to be, including utility costs, including your tax payments. All of that will take its toll on
Sure.
how much you actually think you're going to be walking away with. So if I were, for example, in the Chicago market, which is where I live right now, my minimum profit margin would be $35,000. So all of the other numbers, I would have to walk away with at least 35,000 net
Okay.
profit. If I don't hit that number, I either renegotiate with the seller so that I get into the deal at a lower cost. I would wholesale the property, or I
Right.
would walk away. You
Okay.
cannot be afraid to walk away from a deal if it doesn't hit your standards. For you to try to I guess accommodate somebody else, or risk taking on a deal that the numbers are telling you, hey, you know what, there's not enough meat on this bone, you're setting yourself up for some of those catastrophic damages that could take
Yeah.
years for you to overcome, in the future. So be
Right.
be very, very careful with that.
And that's a good example of why having the buyer's list is so important in understanding wholesaling in addition to fix and flip. Because when you come across those deals, it might be a good deal, but it might not meet your specific net profit margin.
Exactly.
But that
Yep.
doesn't mean it won't meet somebody else's, right? They might
Exactly.
be able to squeeze more profit out of it. So you have it under contract, you wholesale it to them really quick, and you've still made money, and you
Right. And
haven't wasted your time there.
it all goes back to knowing where you are, what you're buying for, and who your end user is going to be. So if you come across a deal and all you're doing is looking for fix and flip properties, this particular property may not have a good enough profit margin for you. So you can either try to wholesale it to someone, or if it's pretty turnkey, you have a good potential rental property
Mm.
on your hands. I would lock it up, put it under contract, and then maybe minimize the amount of earnest money deposit that you give. But you can monetize just about every real estate deal that you come across if you know overall market conditions, particular subject property analytics, and kind of web that deal out to potential exit strategies that, again, you are well informed, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, you know what market you're in. The chances of you goofing up royally on a deal are minimized.
Right. Okay. So then, would you say that really, if we were trying to simplify this, because we're talking about all kinds of different reports and numbers and stuff, to really simplify it, would you say that your net profit number, your net profit margin, that is ultimately what determines whether or not this is a good deal? Assuming that you actually run all the number, you put all these pieces together, the CMA, the financing cost, and then your rehab budget as well, you come to your net profit margin. That's really the ultimate determining factor on whether or not this is a good deal for each individual investor?
Yes. I would go as far as saying that that's probably, I need to have green flags all the way through my analysis, from the market down to the actual local area to the subject property. That net profit is really the last go that I'm waiting for after I've done all my homework. Once that is there, and again, you trust your realtor, you trust your contractor, you should be good to go on an awesome, kick-ass, profitable deal.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So we've talked about a lot of different. And also I like the three puzzle piece there. I think that's really good. Is there anything that we've missed there that you use with your real estate deals, or that your clients use to analyze a deal, aside from the three parts and the reports that we've talked about already? Is there anything else that you guys use to properly analyze a deal?
Those are the three main components that we take a look at. Now, when someone comes to us and they have a property under contract, we will run the numbers through our profit margin analysis, and we will give our clients a printout of that report and kind of give our feedback along with the printed out copy. We try to give, again, as much information as possible. We have the financing piece to it, so we will know exactly, give or take, what your down payment is going to be, what your
Right.
interest rates are going to be, whether or not we can acquire additional working capital for you. So we put all of those components into the profit analysis to make sure that, yeah, you know what, this is a great deal. You're going to be making about X numbers of dollars, assuming that the property doesn't take you longer than what the projected timeline is. So
Right. I
it's,
gotcha.
and again, contingencies, we put that into the original scope of work, and we also put in a buffer within the profit margin, just in case it were to go past that or something were to happen. You've got a good sense of security, and assurance that what you're getting into, although it can't be 100% solidified, you do have a good educational approach towards making the decision of getting into that investment.
Right. And what would you say is a good way for somebody to get an idea of the cost from that third piece, that financing part that often will eat into the net profit that people don't analyze usually? What's a good way for people to get those financing costs so they know what those are?
Yeah, I would definitely reach out to whoever it is that you're working with. They should be able to get you at least a preliminary term sheet based on your personal circumstances, and it
So
should
whether,
be able
real
to
quick, was it so
break
whether
down interest rates.
that's the lender you're talking about, whether it's a mortgage broker, a bank, alternative funding, a hard money lender, that's who you're talking
Correct.
about.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
You should be able to get that preliminary term sheet from
Okay.
whoever it is that you're working with. And
Gotcha.
those costs should be, although because it's a pre-approval, they won't be all the way itemized, but
Hmm.
based on previous experience, especially coming from the broker world, the broker should know about what your closing costs are going to come out to be,
Right.
what your expected down payment is, and what your interest rates are.
Okay.
Those other three components are what are going to be making up your overall financing component of your profit analysis.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. Do you want to? Is that pretty? I mean, I got a ton from that for fix and flips. Do you want to transition over to into rentals, or is there anything else you want to cover there for fix and
Yeah,
flip?
so yeah, for fix and flip, it's pretty extensive, and I know that there's a lot of overlapping information depending on, what your particular exit strategy is going to be. For rentals, a lot of the analysis comes with how the property is actually performing. So you have to take a look at what your current revenue is, what the market rate is, and see if they are aligned. If
Hmm.
they are not aligned, you have the opportunity to optimize what we call a lease optimization. You want to double check and make sure that the renters are paying what the market value for the rent is, and that they are all under some type of lease. You'd be surprised how many, especially the more seasoned landlords that have apartment buildings, they are getting ready to retire, and a lot of them kind of let their tenants go on a month to month basis,
Hmm.
which is
Interesting.
Yeah, it can be beneficial to the tenant, but there's
Of
a
course.
lot of risk involved from the landlord's perspective. But you know, a lot of them maybe have mentally checked out and they're kind of ready to move on. And if you come across a deal that, you know, there a lot of the documents are a on a month to month rental basis, jump on that deal, optimize the deal, let them know that, hey, you know what, I'm going to be signing 18-month lease agreements with you, increase the rents, get the property performing in a much better capacity. And rental properties, apartment buildings tend to be analyzed in a much different capacity.
Right.
There are there normally aren't run on CMAs.
Right.
They are driven off of revenue. So if you can get a property to go from, for example, $25,000 of gross operating revenue and bump that up to 100,000 by optimizing the leases, maybe putting in coin operated laundry, putting up billboards, you know, just getting more revenue generated into the property, you can literally go from no equity to a ton of equity in like 60 days. Something like that cannot happen on a regular residential property.
Right.
So it's got its pros and cons, but generally speaking, rentals are 100% revenue analyzed when it comes to its market value.
So then, what kind of reports are you requesting from your team at that point in order to properly to get the numbers you need to run a proper analysis?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing would be some type of market rate for leased properties. The realtors should be able to get you, and even if you go onto like Zillow.com, you put in a zip code, it'll give you a decent idea of what the going market rate is for a rental property based on its square footage and bed and bath count. So even going into maybe a preliminary negotiation with someone, going to Zillow to kind of give you indicator as to where the property is at, and then maybe reinforcing that with an actual realtor report is probably the best way to get something like that going.
Okay, so it's specifically based on rents. I mean, the revenue that
Right.
it's going to bring in, and this applies whether it's a single family home or a 500 person apartment complex. It's all about the rents, and I guess there could be obviously when analyzing the market for it, is your market, is there growth, is there job growth, are people moving into that local
Right.
market, things like that. But actually looking at the deal itself, would you say, like, when comparing rents, does the same like 1 mile radius still apply, or can you expand that out?
So that really depends on the property type. If it is a straight single family home, a lot of the market analysis when it comes to the overall market value of the property still hold water with a fix and flip,
Mhm.
because it's a single family home.
Right.
Now once you start going into maybe two or three flats, at that point they start to differentiate themselves from a single family residence. With the type of apartment building that it is, it's, again, depending on what type of local market you are in, your building, your subject property may be the only apartment building of its kind within that 1 mile radius. So
Right.
that wouldn't necessarily apply. That would be more of an overall zip code by zip code or neighborhood by
Mm.
neighborhood approach that the realtor will be able to help you with.
Okay.
And that really does take a local knowledge for you to be able to produce effective reports, because even like here in Chicago, it's a neighborhood by neighborhood, street by street analysis of rental properties, because a even though within a 1 mile radius, half a mile down the road, the neighborhood will take a completely different feel. And
Mm,
so the rental areas will be affected by that. So yeah, it's really important that on the rental side you have a good team with boots on the ground to get you accurate reporting on that.
gotcha. And then last thing I wanted to ask about the rentals, the since it's more revenue based, do you have more flexibility with? Well, I don't know if that the net profit margin would apply the same, but do you have more flexibility with like your scope of work? Like if the property needs more, maybe a little bit more work done to it, as long as after all of your costs and everything, you hit your goal for the net revenue, would that be still be considered a good deal, even though maybe you're doing a little bit more work to the property? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it really depends on the mitigating circumstances of the investor. So if the investor's coming in and they are, for example, credit challenged, the lender's not going to take a look at that property with any future projection whatsoever. They're going to take a look at the here and now. So they're going to limit how much money they're going to borrow to the investor based on the current market value of the property. Now, if you're someone that is maybe more established on a credit perspective, or you have experience in these types of deals, the lender will have more of a future scope of your past experience, and also what the future performance of the property is going to be. And then it also depends on the type of property. A single family home will not have that forward perspective
Right.
versus a 25 building or 25 unit apartment building will.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. All right, sounds good, man. Wow, that was a lot of good stuff. So we're a little past the 45-minute mark. So I guess we'll start to wrap it up here. Uh, any final things that you want to go over, that you want to add when it comes to analyzing markets and specific deals? Anything else that we want to add to that?
I do want to add a layer of self-awareness when it comes to getting ready to get into real estate investing, especially if it's your very first deal. Know exactly where you are at financially. I know you could easily, especially if your source of information are some of these bigger, real estate education guru type programs. They can get you really hyped on getting into a particular exit strategy that may or may not fit your particular market.
Right.
But having self-awareness of knowing where your credit is at, what your liquidity is, those two components are very, very important to take into account before you put any bid on any property, regardless of the exit strategy.
Right.
Um, because if you come to me, and we've kind of touched on this in previous episodes, but if you come to me and you say, hey, you know what, Jose, I got this really great rental property, but your credit score is 575, regardless of how great of a deal that may potentially be, you're not going to get upfront funding for it because you don't have the credit to support the refinance of the property once all the renovations are done. We'll be
Right.
able to help you acquire it. That's absolutely no problem. We might even be able to help you get the rehab portion of it, but your exit strategy is not viable. So take a look, be self-aware of what it is that you are capable of, and don't be afraid, don't be ashamed to kind of grow into what your business model, what you want your business model to be.
Right.
If you have to start off fix and flip to work your way into building a rental portfolio, number one, you're going to be a better investor for it because you're going to gain a ton of experience. And number two, you are going to be building huge cash injections that you can put into acquiring maybe even the ideal rental property for you in the future, as opposed to maybe sacrificing it and taking a lesser than ideal property just because you didn't have the capital to get into it, or what have you. So
Right.
be self-aware, know what your exit strategy, what impact those are going to have on your business model and you as an individual.
Right. And then I would add also put a very strong emphasis on building the right team. Don't be afraid to talk to people, because what a lot of being able to analyze the deal properly comes down to is information, having access to really good numbers, really good reports, information from these other experts, realtors, contractors. So if you don't know what, for example, like what a typical scope of work would look like for this type of property,
Right.
how do you get that information? Well, you need to have a good contractor on your team. So go into your local real estate events. There's tons of real estate investor Facebook groups, and start having conversations with people, building that team. Because the more accurate, specific, detailed information you can get for your market, the better you're going to be able to analyze those deals. The better deals you're going to find, right? And also keep you out of trouble too.
Yeah, absolutely. And even going maybe a step or two further, part of your real estate investing team should include some type of broker and some type of consultant outside of your realtor. I'm hoping that the information that was part of this YouTube interview is beneficial to people. But a lot of the information that I'm trying to give out to people for free are a direct result from the business real estate consultants that I work with and that we allow our clients to work with,
Right.
that have made me aware of market trends, potential future market changes that are happening, that allow me to become a much better underwriter for the deals that do come across my desk from our clients. So add those people to your team.
Sure.
We also take a very long-term approach with our clients. If you come to us and you want to get into the real estate world, number one, no, not obligated, but we will have a consulting team that can work with you and help you put all of this stuff together so that you know what you're getting yourself into. But then number two, getting into your first fix and flip deal with us, you don't have any minimum or revenue requirements that you have to meet. So we will help you get into that first fix and flip deal. We will help you make sure that it is viable, your exit strategy, and you have enough profit on the back end to make sure that you're taking on the right risk. But we also do free credit repair to all of our first time clients, whether you need it or you are using to possibly leverage it to access some of the working capital that we can help get for some of our clients. We want to help people step up and move their game up in the real estate world and in the business world. So, coming in and taking a look at not only our programs, but also some of the resources that we have can really help propel how you scale, how you grow your business operations.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. Everything you need under one roof. So, awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate it. This was an awesome training. Really, really good stuff. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Make sure you connect with Jose. Again, we'll have a link down in the description. You can book a free strategy call, whether you have a deal under property at the moment or not. Maybe you want to get a better feel for your market and again, start to build your team up. Your team doesn't even necessarily have to be local, not your entire
Exactly.
team, right?
Right.
So adding Jose and his team to your team, probably one of the better things one of the best things that you'll do in your real estate business if you're really looking to grow and scale. So with that said, Jose, it's always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate your time and your knowledge, and definitely looking forward to the next one.
I appreciate you, man. And again, hopefully anybody has any questions whatsoever, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help educate as much as possible. Hopefully earn your business, but as long as it makes you a better investor, we're right on board there with you.
Awesome. Love it. All right, man. We will talk to you in the next one. Enjoy your day.
All right, brother. Take soon. You too.